Christy Sullivan and I own Loveland Yoga and Core Fitness, and today I'm going to go over some how-tos for certain poses. Today we're going to go over child's pose, and just to be clear with whomever is watching this, I'm not saying any style is incorrect on how they're trying to teach you how to do the pose, but we're trying to get bodies into the pose, and this is what's really going to make what the pose looks like or doesn't look like. And say today, child's pose is one of the easiest poses that we can do. It's a safe pose, it's a rest pose, but for some reason it seems like when it looks like people are working, and that's completely opposite of rest and stuff. So this is really dependent on how the upper quarter moves. And when I mean upper quarter, it's going to be from the mid-chest all the way up. So we'll go over a couple of things really fast. So when we bring our arms up overhead, what we're looking for, I'm going to have you do it this way. Bring both arms in front. There you go. There you go. Relax. She's ahead of me. That's all good. Is that when we bring our arms overhead, regardless if we're standing in just Tadasana, Warrior 1, Warrior 2, Crescent, even child's pose and Utkatasana. This requires thoracic, this is your mid-back, right around in that shoulder blade area behind the heart. That requires thoracic extension, okay? So go ahead and bring your arms up over your head. Okay, so now lift up your chest, lift up your chest. That's what that looks like, that tiny extension that you saw her move through. And she did not come from the pelvis, did not come from the mid-back, came from the upper back. Is required for those arms to go overhead and safely. Okay, so we're going to see how this looks like in child's pose. So go ahead and kneel down and go into child's pose. Whatever child's pose you want. And it doesn't matter which child's pose it is, or wisdom's pose, whatever name you want to put onto it. If we're in this pose, okay, we're in flexion. Okay, now as you can see, she's reaching straight out in front of her, okay? And what this is going to do to the head of the humerus right here, it's actually going to push up right up against the joint. This joint is intimate with the thoracic spine and the neck, and for somebody who is not flexible, being like this, really reach out. There you go. This is what a lot of people do. They'll end up shrugging their shoulders. How's that feel for you?
It's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. Where do you feel it?
I actually feel it more through here.
Okay, she's going to feel it here. Some people will tell me they feel it in their neck, they feel it in their upper back, okay? And so something that's really nice is that we have an opportunity to bend our arms, okay? We don't have to reach out as far as we possibly can. Now, I know Kim can actually go further than that, but her knees are together, making this more of a flexion pose. So now open up your knees, because she's really flexible, okay? So now, as you can see, this mid-upper back actually went into extension, okay? Even though there's flexion right here, she's in extension right here. This is why she can reach out in front of her like this, keep her arms straight, and the head of the humerus is still gliding nicely inside the glenoid or the shoulder socket, which then takes pressure away from the neck and the thoracic spine. How's that feel? Feels good. Okay, so it's really comfortable for her and stuff. So we're going to pull somebody else in here though who is not capable of doing this. Okay, so we're going to switch out. All right, come here, Amanda. All right, so Amanda, go ahead and get in your child's pose. Okay. All right. So she's in full flexion. Okay. Same thing. She's trying to reach out in general. Okay. She still actually needs to bend her arms a little bit more and relax. How's that feel?
Good.
Okay. She's working, even though she wasn't feeling anything. That's what other people will tell me. Oh, I don't feel pain. I don't feel discomfort. But then I asked, do you feel like you're working? Yes. Well, you're in a rest pose. You should be resting. Okay. Now she did the same thing. Her knees are together, which is fine. Knees together, knees apart. It doesn't matter. Open up your knees. Okay. Okay, so let's see how that changes for people. It gives her more room too. Gives her a little bit more extension in the spine, okay? Now, my really super tight person that was supposed to be here today did not come here today, okay? Which is fine. What you're gonna notice also in child's pose is that somebody can't get their hips down. There's so many reasons why they can't get their hips down. And we immediately think it's their hips, or at least the back of their hips, okay? So even though she's not overly tight in the hips, we're just gonna get an idea of what she's feeling now. So go ahead and sit up so you can tell the camera. All right, so just kind of give an idea. Did it feel comfortable in your hips?
Yeah.
Some people will tell you that it's pinching right at the hip here. Remember, we have front of the hip and the back of the hip, okay? So it's really gonna restrict this as well for the hips going down with this tight quadriceps, okay? Because the quadricep in general, I'm not gonna get into depth on this, essentially attaches to your hip bone right here, or your ASIS. When this muscle gets short and tight, it begins to pull on the pelvis, it'll pull it down. And if the pelvis is getting pulled down, people are moving into an anterior tilt, which means as they fold over, they're going to begin to flex from the lower back and not from the pelvis first, okay? So what we need to do for them is loosen up their quadriceps first, okay? So what I'm going to have you do, okay, is you're going to bring your left foot up on top of the wall like this, okay? Scooch back. All right, now, if you got really tight people, their shin does not belong on the wall, okay? Because they haven't gotten deep enough in the pose yet, okay? Bring your right leg up into a lunge position. Okay, there you go. All right, now, she needs to get all the way up. Feel how that is now? Okay, now, it's a nice tight pose. All right, now, because that's tight for her, because she had that reaction, hands go back down. Pull the knee away a little bit. There you go. Now go back up. Okay. Now she still wants to be in anterior tilt right here. Okay. So a couple of things. The heel needs to be directly behind the glute. The thing is she can't look because as soon as she looks, it's going to move to the outside anyway. This is not to be like hero's pose or anything like that. If the right hip is dropped down, or the hip is dropped down, if it's like this, if her leg is back like this, gotta love the balance part of it. Thank you for being there, right there. So if her hip is right here, tells us a couple of things. She's either too deep in the pose still, or she just needs to realign that pelvis so we can actually stretch the quadricep, okay? Did you feel that? Okay. Do you see how the belly's still kind of poking out like that? That's because she's in an anterior tilt, okay? So she's got to bring the hip bones up towards the rib cage and let your body move backwards. There you go. You're like, this is intense, okay? When they start doing that, they got to come out of the pose, okay? Come out of the pose. Just coming out of the pose like that. When you put somebody in a pose that's that intense, switch sides, that's that intense, even though you keep modifying, your brain does not really get that there's stability at this joint, so it's not going to let go. So the longer you hold it, the better, or the worse it's actually going to get. You actually have to come out of the pose, okay? So now she's going to bring her hip bones up, let it move back so you can get it, there you go, okay? And she's never done this stretch before either, okay? This is only catching the quadricep. How's this side feel?
It feels like it's getting stretched.
Okay, so it shouldn't hurt though, but we're gonna go back to the other side because I gotta show you more that goes into this pose. Switch sides, okay? Because the other muscle that will pull you into an anterior tilt, okay? So remember when the hip bones come up, allow that to move back. Okay. But you don't have to touch the wall, but you do move backwards, okay? Now, this is so intense. She feels really tight. She didn't know she was this tight. Okay, so her right hand can either be on her shin, or her thigh, sorry, okay? Or she could use the wall, okay? But the hip bone still stays up, okay? Now she's gonna take her left arm up. She's gonna side bend away, okay? And just the shoulders are gonna go open back up, but keep the hips square, okay? Because now I'm after the psoas as well, because the psoas is attached to the lesser trochanter of the femur and then all 5 of your lumbar and vertebrae. That's very important to know, okay? Because it messes up the mechanics of the lumbar spine. So now go ahead and come out, okay? Now I'm not going to go back to the other leg. She's going to go back into child's pose. She's going to tell me how it feels. She's got to get blood back into the thigh though. It's all good. She sits further back, by the way. I don't know if anybody notices it. Now, lift your head up, turn towards the camera and say that out loud.
My muscle feels released and it feels very nice.
Do you feel deeper in the pose?
I feel very deep in the pose.
Yeah, she's sunk into the pose, okay? Now, she even has actually more room up here. So, it's just an idea to let you know that there's more to child's pose than just folding over into it. The body's still has to be essentially loose enough to find comfort. And if you're not comfortable, you're not resting, you're not relaxing, and it doesn't feel like a safe pose. And of course, if none of this works for somebody, that there are other issues at hand, of course, child's pose isn't for them. But that is it. If you have any questions, definitely leave a comment, or you can definitely email me at Christy_Sullivan, so that would be CHRISTI_Sullivan, SULLIVAN at MSN.com. Thanks. Come on up.